All right. So, as I was showing you, you can add tracks, and you know how to do that simply by on a Mac it'd be Command T, on a Windows it's Control T, and you can add as many as you want, right? Um, Now you got to think about your projects go through a microphone or an instrument with a cable, right? If you're recording guitar, you're going to need an eighth inch in
track as well.
through your interface.
So I plug the guitar into that.
Yeah, right. And so these they look like they're just for XLRs, but the center, it actually they're both. They're designed to fit an XLR or a quarter inch.
So if I'm gonna be doing that a lot, should I like buy that kind of cord too for the guitar? And my guitar doesn't have it, but I'm assuming somebody else when they record they'll have.
Well, if you're recording electric guitar,
Uh-huh.
you're going to use a cord. Acoustic guitar, if it has a pickup, if it has a plug-in pickup, you can record it that way. Although guitars sound way better, they're meant to be the acoustic sound that comes
Without
from
it.
them. You want to mic. I mean, professionally, you would mic up guitars.
So get the wire and connect it even to an acoustic is what you mean, right? Or
No,
the mic to the guitar.
no. What I'm saying is, you would want to mic up a guitar and record it the sound from the sound hole.
To
And you can look up tutorials about how to mic up guitars. But that's even more professional. You can get away with if you had a guitar with a pickup, you could record it with the pickup. But I would get used to recording it if you can. I mean, the thing is, you need mic stands, you need, a decent mic and those kind of things. So, um, anyways, my point being is that you, your microphone right now, like this microphone is running into the interface, and then that runs into, right? So look at the top, everything flows from the top down, okay? If you open these up, these are all the inputs. You could have massive amount of inputs. It depends on the interface. This interface only has 6 inputs, so I can only use audio input 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? And then I have 2 outputs. Actually, on this one, I think I have four outs on here. You've got your big meter. You've got your advanced MIDI, which you're not going to necessarily use right now. But understand this is the first thing that comes in, right? What is your audio driver? And you know that in your preferences, well, actually, on a PC, preferences is under edit. On a Mac, preferences will be right here. And in preferences, you can choose what your audio driver is. So sometimes you're like, oh, why am I not getting feed into my DAW? Well, because maybe you got the wrong audio card driver selected. Right now, I'm using my primary sound driver, which runs it back into my interface, but I don't have any inputs. You can see, look, my active input channels are 0, right? But when I'm editing, I'm using lots of effects. I get a higher buffer size using this. So, but normally when I'm recording, I have to go to the audio interface that I'm using, which is the Yamaha Steinberg. For you, it would be Focusrite, Scarlett. I don't know if it's a 2i or
I think it's a 2i.
some one of those, right? So now it can get confusing on a PC because it gives you so many options. Mac will give you, I think, 2 or 3 options, which is a lot easier to use. Because I'm recording, I'm going to go to my Yamaha Steinberg USB, and you'll see that my buffer size has already changed. Okay. Now, one of the things that you have to understand about recording is that you have latency. That your mic has to go through this wire into that interface, into the DAW, and in that process, you're going to get latency. Not only are you going to get latency in, but you're going to get latency back out. That now, not only it has to run in, but it has to come back out and then through your speakers or your headphones. So it'll show you by the buffer size, right, that you have set, what your input latency is and what your output latency is.
Or do you want it around?
The lower the better. But here's the thing is, when you start putting effects on your channels, your computer will go into overdrive and it may start clicking or glitching depending on how many effects you have. That's why when you record and you're doing vocals, you want to have most of your effects, especially like the ones that really pull a lot of CPU, you want to have those turned off. So I usually, won't. I'll record with minimal effects on, and I'll put lots of effects on afterwards, and I'll increase my buffer size. But when I'm recording, I want a buffer size probably around 512. I'm getting 16 milliseconds of input latency, which is pretty good. You're not even going to notice that. And then you can do recording latency compensation, where if there's an input latency, it will automatically move it for you in the to match up with how it should be. Does it make sense? It'll match up your input. So like when I record, if I don't do the recording compensation, it'll record it and it'll actually leave it a little bit late. That's why, like, if you're recording with a higher buffer size, you may record something and realize, like, oh, like, it's a little bit off. Like, why is it off? Well, because you got input latency. And if you don't do compensation or you move it manually, it's going to happen over and over again.
Yeah.
Does this make sense? Mm-hmm. I want to make sure you're following. I know this is like technical information, but this is key to like you not getting frustrated in a recording session later on. Yeah. Do you see what I mean? So, let's see. So I set the buffer size to 512. That's pretty good. As long as I'm not running a lot of effects, I should not be getting any glitching. So your microphone goes into your audio interface, and let's look at the mixer. And remember, everything flows from the top down. Okay? You think about a chain of command, and that your microphone signal or your music signal from outside is coming in to the top of the mixer, and it's flowing down through a series of processes. Okay? And the first process is input. Look, each one of these is labeled on your mixer. Input, dynamics, EQ. If you scroll down, inserts. This is where you get your insert effects, right? Sends. This is your effects that you can send multiple tracks to the same effect, and you can control the level that it's being sent.
So those aren't the effects, but that's where you drag the effect to and
kind of. So like you see how each one of these is labeled 1, 2, 3, 4. Mm-hmm. First plate, drum, and you can change them. So where you would change them is if I go F6 back to my rack, you see under my master section are these 4 effects. These are sends. So if I flip the rack, I can see that each one of these effects is going out to an effect send. So an effect send is sending a signal to each effect, and then it's returning back to the master. Okay? Now I can control, let's say this is a vocal. I can say, oh, I want some of this reverb on there. I can activate it, and then I can adjust the level of the reverb on that particular vocal. So each vocal that you do, you don't have to put a reverb on every single track. Because look, if I put a reverb and I had 8 vocals, and it's like each one you're dragging one of these reverbs into, now you're adding all these extra effects that's going to drag, not make it sound too much. It's going to, you're talking about each reverb that I pull in here is going to take CPU.
That's a reverb right there?
Yeah. So each one, now if I put one on each channel, now I got like 8 reverbs that are all pulling, right? Instead of doing a send. So with a send, I've got these 4 effects that are all doing different things, and I can activate 2 of them
so
if I wanted to.
From one panel, which makes it less.
Right, but I can now send each track, boom. If I want each vocal to have that same reverb, I don't have to put it on them. I send it to this reverb, and then it sends back to the master.
So you just sent to each track that first one.
That first.
First plate, all first plate, or something
Yep.
like that.
Yep.
So with that effect, you just affected all vocals by pressing 1 1 1 1.
Yep. I sent each one. I activated each track to be sent, and then this is the knob that sends how much signal do I send to that reverb.
And then you hit 2, but that's for a different.
That's a different effect.
Okay.
Okay, and you can have up to 8 effects
Okay.
running, and then sending each of your ones to different ones.
And when you do that, that connects the wires on its own when you turn them on, or you have to connect the ones.
No. It's automatically connecting because their effect sends the wires are already done for you when you drop them in. So if I dropped in another echo, okay, now if I flip the rack, boom, there's 5. It's already pre-connected for me.
Okay, cool. Yeah,
Okay.
it's confusing when you turn it around.
Yeah. So yeah, don't get
Pretty simple so far.
don't get fooled by the rack. It may look like a lot going on with the wires, but
The knobs.
yeah. So think about the first thing that hits your channel is your gain.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now my gain by default is set to 0. I can push the gain a little bit more if I need more volume.
So that brings it up, right? Louder.
Yeah, but I wouldn't use that as like your volume control, but like only like in the case where like, oh, I'm trying to get some volume out of this, but I just didn't record it loud enough, and
That's when you would do it.
you can push it a little bit. I really wouldn't. Normally don't use this knob. Yeah.
Okay.
So now this is your chain of command.
Dynamics, EQ,
Insert. That's the way it's flowing. Dynamics, EQ, inserts. Now, personally, I would probably do insert. Sorry, not insert pre. I would do EQ post or dynamics post EQ. So I would flip them. You see how this one is dynamics EQ insert. This one is EQ dynamics insert. You can change the order in which the signal flows through your channel.
And you just did that to only the first track.
Right. Each track you have the freedom to do how you want. Now it's just a matter of preference. Some people would say, oh, you need to compress it, then EQ it, and then you can compress it again in your inserts, or you can just go inserts first. So like before it even hits this compressor, all of the effects that you put on it in your inserts, right here in this section, right? You can see the insert. If I do edit inserts, it's going to bring up the rack, and this is my insert right here. So you can pull effects into there. Okay? So it's just the chain of command of how you want the signal to be treated. Now, this is going into mixing.
So you put EQ first normally. EQ, dynamics, insert. Insert is the effect itself.
It can be an EQ or a compressor. It's whatever effect you put on it. You have a lot of freedom to do different things in the inserts. So here's what I want you to focus on, because a lot of it, you'll be recording at home, dry vocals. You may do a quick EQ, which I'll show you now how to do. You may put a little compression on it right here, but you're not going to be doing much more than that. You may throw it a send on it to a reverb, just so it, you get to hear what it sounds like with a little reverb on it. But you'll be bringing these sessions in, and then we'll mix and master them or whatever needs to be done. So really, I just want you to understand, you want good gain out of your mic. So you're going to be recording with a SM58 at home, or no, with that Audio Technica for now. So
What's the other one?
make sure that
That's the green one?
the green one,
Call it?
no, the Audio
This is Audio
Technica,
Technica.
yeah. So your gain, I'm assuming, will probably want to
Middle.
be right in the middle, but you'll mess with it. You don't want to be clipping. Make sure you're not hitting red when you're recording. Like when you're getting vocal signal, so you can see here, I'm getting pretty good vocal signal, and even it might even be a little bit hot, because if I get really loud, you can see I just clipped, right? So for my speaking voice, this is a good signal. But if I was to get any louder,
You want to put the gain
this
down
would
a little.
be, yeah, I would turn that down there. Um, so now when you're mixing vocals and stuff, one of the things is you want to get really organized because it's easy to like um, get mixed up with what track is what, and if you organize them, you can even color code them, which is nice. Like if I do my dubs, I would probably select them both, right click.
It's a dub. Like,
It's a double of whatever you
lead.
record.
Dub,
Um,
right?
so you got your lead and then your dubs. So left and right. Now they're not left and right until I tell them to be. So if I go back to my mixer,
What does that mean, left and right? So one is in your left ear, one is your right?
it creates space. So you create width. What's the word? Width.
With.
um, with your mix. So if I pan this one all the way left and this one all the way right, now those are going to be playing solely in there. Now you don't have to pan them that hard. You can. I usually do, but you can also go 44 and 44,
So that one's to the left, that one's to the okay.
right? So you got your lead, and you don't always have to do a dub, but there may be times you want a little thickness or a little space, and you create that by doing some dubs, and then you bring those down, right? So that they're underneath the lead vocal.
And you are in your input right now,
We're in the mixer.
mixer. And that's okay.
This is the fader section. This is the last section. Everything else is in the chain of command.
So all that's the mixer, but you're messing right now with the input? Or you're messing with, because isn't there like EQ?
We're not going to do any inserts, and I don't want you to focus on inserts. I want you to focus mainly on this mixer.
But it's in this, they're all in the same section. Like it's right there, right?
Yeah, it's all right here. And like, think about if you were in a big studio with a big board that would have a console would have all of these knobs.
Mm-hmm.
So it's actually a digital version of like a big studio board, and you would be able to throw compressor and EQ, and you'd be doing knobs on each channel. So you can do the same thing here. So I would say go EQ first, then dynamics. Okay. The first EQ move that you want to do is your high pass frequency. So you can see it's a line that goes like this, because if I pull up the Spectrum EQ and I hit high pass frequency, look what it does. It cuts the low end and it lets the highs pass through. So that's why it's called a high pass filter, because it lets the highs pass through and it cuts the low end, right? The low pass filter does the opposite. It cuts the highs and lets the low pass through.
What does that mean?
What you mean?
It cuts.
It cuts the frequencies out. Like if you ever hear like a beat where it starts off where it sounds like it's, you're outside the club and you can't hear what the music on the other side, and then it all of a sudden and it comes, yeah. So, but
okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the first EQ move that you will do on vocals is a high pass filter. Okay. And depending on the vocal, if it's a speaking vocal, I probably want to cut it around 80, because I still want that bass of someone's voice. If you're doing singing, you'd probably cut up a little higher, 120, 150. Depends on the vocal too. Some female vocals you'd cut up even 180, and because you're not getting much frequency down here. And one of the reasons you cut the low end is because, like on syllables like b or p or pops, like any pop sounds, they're going to give you that really heavy bass. You'll cut those out.
You won't hear it.
Yeah, and you really want this register in the EQ to be only for your bass tones. your sub, your bass guitar. Does it make sense?
Mhm.
Um, so you'll want to mess around with this. Try not to push EQs up, okay? You want to do subtractive EQ, and I'll show you what that means. The only one that you'll want to push is probably your high end, right? And this will give you the like the high breathy kind of like the syllabants of your your tone, like the
Expand
you
that.
want to bring those highs out,
Bring it
so
up.
you it like it cuts through the mix. Do
Mhm.
you know what I'm saying? But then you might find that you're getting some frequencies that you're not liking, and you may, um, if I hold Alt and I drag this up, you see how it gets wider or thinner?
Mhm.
Changes the Q. Okay. So I can sweep through. I can go like this. I'm like, oh, there's a frequency right there. I'm not liking it. I can sweep through, find the frequency, and I say, oh, there it is. That's hurting my ears, right? And then I can pull it down,
So it's not so high pitched in a way.
right? So you may do a move like that, and I may do the same thing here. Let me thin it out. Find, oh, there's a frequency I don't like, and pull it down. I'm just giving you examples. So that may be what an EQ looks like for you. Very simple for
Mhm.
right now.
Mhm.
That's all you have to do. And really, it's just a matter of you liking it for right now. That way, when you bring it in,
Fix it up.
well, yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So, um, you got your lead vocal, your dubs. I would probably do harmony,
Yeah, I'm starting doing some harmonies too.
harmony one, harmony two. Now, you can do harmony one and double it left and right. Or you can do harmony one left, harmony one right, harmony two left, harmony two right. That way you're getting like this full sound of like all these.
Choirness almost.
Yeah, you
Like
fill it up
full.
with
Yeah.
how many. Now don't sometimes we can get overboard with our
Uh
harmonies.
huh.
Sometimes less is more. Sometimes you just need that big room sound, right?
Yeah.
Um, and you remember how to shut off the monitor because by default this is turned on, and that gives you that latency. You're hearing that latency that you're getting when that monitor is turned on, and you remember you were able to turn that off here.
Automatic.
Automatic is default, what it's usually set to. I leave it at manual because I want to be able to turn it on and off.
And how do you turn it on and off? You go to.
You just click on it.
Oh, right there.
That's the monitor.
So now.
You'll be able to hear what's going through the channel. So like when the monitor is activated, it's running through the channel, right? Through the entire chain of command that you tell it.
So you're hearing how it comes out through what you've done to it.
Right, but you're going to hear it with latency because in
It's taking a while. To
processing, and then you're hearing like a little delay,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Like a lag. Like you.
So um and then last thing that you can do, let's say I want to couple these together. So I've got all these harmonies. Let's just say all these are harmonies, right? And I want all my harmonies routed to the same channel.
Did you just highlight them all?
So harmonies. I
So you're controlling them from that one channel.
so now all of those are controlled by this fader, and I can also put insert effects or EQ. Like I have a whole nother channel strip, right? All those are being sent into here this way, and I can compress them together. I can EQ them together. Any IQ
That created
EQs,
itself when you did that.
yes. So you see now all of them are saying harmonies.
okay.
They're all going to this.
Same color and everything.
And then you can change the colors too if you want to.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Sometimes I'll go in and
Well, now I know it's going with. Oh, Oh, so you changed them all.
You can.
Those are all harmonies up there, pretty much.
Hypothetically, yes.
Yeah.
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 I'm just giving you an idea of how to.
It looks no. Now I see how it's organized and what controls what and what color. That's why organization it's pretty important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I usually label everything and.
It makes it a lot easier. It makes the
Yeah.
board look easier.
So the next thing is, uh, let's say I send you a beat, right? And okay, so like Be Like You. I will usually send you the beat with the 95 BPMs or with the BPMs listed. So you know that, okay, if I want this beat to be lined up in here, I need to put in 95, enter, and I can drag this beat in now. And I know that it is on beat. You see how it hits now?
It puts itself on beat.
It's on the grid. It's on the grid now. And boom, there's the start of my chorus. I can already see because it's on grid. It's all organized now, right? Okay. So now you got your beat, you got your vocals. This is what you're normally. This is what a session for you should look like.
It's pretty simple.
It is very simple. You could do this, knock out songs all day at home, bring them in, and we will.
My closet's about this long, just like probably half the width.
Okay.
But do you think is there anything I have to like take out or do? Because I have some of this stuff too. You think it's fine, right? If I just close the door.
You're going to get a lot of kickback. So you want to hang a blanket, get a moving blanket.
Over it, so kind of surround myself.
No, I would think if you made a half circle around you and you put the mic and you face the blanket and sung into the blanket, that kind of thing. Or if you put foam, how high is the ceiling? So if it's a normal height ceiling, I'd probably put some foam right above you. So kind of like when we record here, I put the foam right on top of there so it doesn't bounce up and come back down into the mic.
All right, yeah. That's possible.
Makes sense?
Clean it up a little bit,
Yeah.
I think I have the perfect spot, too.
So, let's see.
Yeah, this seems pretty easy. I tried making a beat. It's coming out a little funny.
So I'm just gonna delete this and we're closing out. Good recording.